Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special edition of the Vinnie Eastwood Show. One complete with background cackling, and a very special guest named Ava Moore. Ava, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Vinnie. Mm-hmm. How are you?
Yeah, borderlining on fabulous is my standard response. But today, under these circumstances, I may just make an exception. Now, the topic of today is an alleged psychopathic stalker character by the name of Eugene Sonny Irvin, and you've just had a rather nasty experience with this guy. Can you explain to me and the listeners precisely what happened here?
Okay, well, in the last 2 years, I've been involved with the Super Soldier Summit, and I deal with people who have unusual stories and very peculiar energy and intense energy. So around June, I saw Eugene kind of come out of the gate on Facebook with all this information, and I'll be very honest. He has a very his intellect is definitely driving in the right direction, and I wanted to support him, and I offered to have him on the show. And, I could feel that his paranoia, or, I guess, his level of skepticism of anyone and everyone was really, really high. So I just let it be. And I think about 6 months later, he finally came back and said, "Oh, by the way, I like some of the things you're posting, and I'd be interested in speaking with you now." And at that point, I was like, "Okay, no big deal." Like, I don't take a lot of things very seriously. I let things go, and I try not to take things personally. But especially dealing with super soldiers, there's like a lot of intense energy in that arena. And I have compassion because a lot of these people come out of projects and they're very wounded. They have a very good reason to be skeptical of people. And so the conversation started at that point where we were just exchanging information. And at one point he made it clear that he was living in a car. And for a while there, I was living in a car. So I have compassion for people in this arena. I mean, the people that are in this arena don't necessarily do it for money. And so it can kind of accumulate to taking a toll. So I offered that he, if he was ever in the Seattle area, that I would be willing and, support him in any way I could. If he needed a place to crash, or I don't have a lot. I'm kind of depending on exchanging in a fair way with other people as well. So whatever I could offer, I would try to support him. And, maybe that's a little bit naive, but I believe in the good in people, and I wasn't really aware of the level of attack that Eugene kind of goes after people with until I mentioned to him that I had an interview with you, and I would have to excuse myself because I was going to go into my room and shut the door and do the interview with you. And it was after that for the next day and a half, nonstop, there was a lot of commentary about you, and it borderlined on the obsessive. And
are you sure it was just borderlining on the obsessive, or just going way over the line, as in one toke over?
Well, I'm going to try and do my best to be very fair, but it was made me very uncomfortable, and it came to a point where I stressed that with him, that I would rather focus on moving forward in ways that provided this world with solutions than just staying stuck on problems. And I encouraged him to do that while he was staying with me, and that I didn't really want to hear any more of that stuff. And he kind of heard me, but I could tell that there is almost an obsessive compulsive type behavior there. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying it because I do believe that he may deep down want to do good things in this world, but he's a little bit out of control. And I'm saying this publicly because he knows where I live, and now that I've seen the combination of apparently the behavior demonstrated itself with Andrew Basiago, where Andrew has publicly come out and said that Eugene may have some kind of mental instability and that he gang stalks Andrew. Then the behavior that he demonstrated on your Facebook page, and from what I'm learning, it doesn't seem to be an issue until you say no to Eugene. And when he was posting on your Facebook page, he tagged me in it and then tried to make some kind of leveraging correlation between the fact that he was staying here and that I was on your show to mean that somehow there was some conspiracy between him and I against you, and that is not the case. And I publicly got on that thread and said, leave me out of this. This is BS drama. I'm not interested in this at all. And, that in reality, I don't let anyone know where I'm staying. So, it was kind of in confidence that he was allowed to stay here, and I felt that he had betrayed that confidence by making a public announcement that he was staying with me. So at that point, that's when, I was a shill, and all of this stuff came out that, somebody had called me a shill. Well, then, okay, then I must be a shill. And, it spiraled from there. And I tried to leave it alone, make it clear that I wasn't interested in that kind of behavior. I defriended him on Facebook. I didn't block him or anything like that, but I just kind of took a huge step back from him. Well, the pepperings kind of continued. And today I received a message, today being the 20th, that he had booked 2 shows on Revolution Radio, and that he was on a show that I had been invited to join last night, which I didn't know he was on, and I didn't get the invitation until this morning. At that point, I connected with my producer and one of the other radio hosts, and we had kind of like a team meeting where I made it very clear that this behavior, I've been very nice to Eugene. I've been very nice to him, very generous, and done my best to offer him whatever I could, and I don't have much. And the level of treatment and the behavior that I've seen is borderline scaring me, because I am alone some of the time, and he knows where I live, and I don't feel like he is in control. And because this is now the 3rd person he's gone after in the public arena, Andrew Basiago, yourself, and now me, I know that he's done it to other people who aren't necessarily in the public eye. I just feel like that's enough. And even though, Vinny, you're not on Revolution Radio, I just think that in this arena we have to stand together. We have bigger fish to fry or bigger issues to tackle, and it doesn't matter if we're on the same station or not. This is ridiculous, and he seems to be leaving a trail of destruction very quickly behind him in an uncontrollable rate. And it actually makes me sad, because I don't even think that's his intention, but I don't think he can help himself. And I need to make it public that this has happened because I was nice to him.
Yeah, and the similar story with myself as well. I was nice to him. He came on my show. I gave him, did I give him an hour or 2 hours? I forget how much time I gave him on air to just literally just sit back and bash Andrew Basiago. And then the very next day, Andrew Basiago called me and said, Vinny, what's going on? Can I explain my side of the story? And I said, sure you can. And I brought him on the show. Then he explained that Eugene was stalking him and so on and so forth. And at the time, Eugene had become, like you said, borderline obsessive. He'd been making like about 30, 40 Facebook posts a day about all sorts of random stuff. And he tagged me in every single one of them, every single time. So every time that I went to my Facebook notifications, there were like 30, 40 tags in there of me from Eugene Sonny Irvin. Now, that's really rude and annoying. And I told him, please stop doing that. I don't want that, I can't afford to follow people. I interview a new person every day. I really don't have time to even look at anybody's Facebook post, let alone even the groups that I run myself, There's no point. And I got the sense that all he was doing was trying to piggyback off of me so that he could gain more notoriety for himself. I don't know if that was the case or anything like that. Maybe he just really, really liked me, and he thought he was helping me to gain more notoriety by doing so, considering he has virtually no followers or any credibility, and everybody who he associates with that questions him or doesn't do precisely what he wants, he winds up trying to turn them into Satan in the eyes of everybody else. And
it's like
nobody believes him.
Emotional hostage taking and gang stalking is what it becomes very quickly.
Yeah, and he has a small cult of people that follow him and always stick up for him and go, oh well, he's just trying to do the right thing. And endless apologists for him. And he has a couple of fake profiles as well, and he even contacted me using one of those fake profiles, asking me what I thought of Eugene Sonny Irvin, and I said, honestly, I'm actually quite afraid of him. I don't want to have anything to do with him at all. And he goes, ha ha ha, guess who it is?
Yeah.
It's just...
Oh dear. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, ha ha ha, what? It's not funny. Like, it's not funny. We're people who are, in an arena where we are putting everything we have on the line to make this planet a better one. And, I'm positive that there are people in this arena who when I was on your show, I mentioned that Dutch Sense had come forward to say that the alternative media apparently is being approached with, a combination of financial payday and diplomatic immunity, perhaps to form an alliance of co-opting the alternative media, which is very upsetting news. And I would love it if you followed up with Dutch. I've tried. He doesn't know who I am, perhaps. But I would love to hear more. He doesn't know
who I am. I've tried to get him on the show a number of times. He never showed up.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. I think it's very important, and I think the people need to know that. But regardless, even if you find out, that somebody is compromised, every inch that we give in trying to defame someone else is an inch away from the truth of making solution more important or focusing on empowerment more important. And that's something that you do very well, is you're covering a very broad perspective across the earth. You're not just in one region, which is admirable. So I feel badly because that was very embarrassing for me when he started attacking you on your page, and then he was here and it was just by happenstance because I had offered him probably a month and a half earlier, that if he was ever in the area, and it just seemed to coincide at the same time, and then became kind of a problem for me there. So I apologize. I want that made very clear that there was no malice intended, and it just happened to work itself on my side anyway that way. And there is a team of people that he works with. I don't know very much about them. There's one girl in particular who I know is, working hard, but at this point I just see anyone who's supporting this behavior as facilitating and really enabling it.
Well, it strikes me as a psychopathic behaviour. What they do is they tell you what you want to hear. It's almost like they put a hand in front of their face, and that hand's actually a mirror. So all you see reflecting back at you, and their behaviour is precisely what they think that you want to see. And then as soon as you kind of realise that they're not who they say they are, or they're not doing what you thought they would be, or whatever, that's when they simply show that other side of you. That's when they reveal that false mirror. They use the best part of you to manipulate yourself, and this is, I think, how he manipulated me into getting him on my show. And I think this is how he manipulated Andy Basiago into having a number of conversations with him that he surreptitiously recorded. Mm-hmm. And I think this is, again, how he manipulated you into allowing him into your home. And he spits in the face of everybody who helps him. This is what I've found. He spits in the face of everybody who helps him, without exception. Well, actually, with the exception to those people who continue to help him without ever questioning what he's doing. Okay.
There's another lady who I know let him stay at her house, and his friend and their dog, and he's done the exact same thing to her. She's not a public figure, but I know that he's done the exact same thing, and he'll take snippets of conversation and screen cap and put them on his page as if it's really big news that somebody's pissed off at him for his behavior. And it's like, okay, well, am I not allowed to have a boundary here that says I don't really want it advertised that you know where I live? Like, that's something that could compromise my safety or the lady who's letting me stay here. You know what I mean? I'm allowed to have that boundary. I'm allowed to have healthy boundaries. And if you dare have healthy boundaries with him, then it becomes you're a shill and you're not being in transparency. And it's like, no, people are allowed to have privacy. They're allowed. And you seem to not know somebody offering you kindness when they do. And if this is the type of behavior that it comes from kindness, like, I'd hate to see somebody who actually has malice intended towards him, because like, and that's the honest truth is, like, I was very nervous to even come on here, but I know that this type of behavior, because he's moved very quickly throughout my network, he's got 41 friends in common with me, and he's already, as of last night, been talking to my producer and created, an alliance to do more shows through my networks on the radio. And it's like, well, when I made it clear that I was concerned, it was given back to me, thank goodness, by Revolution Radio hosts, that this type of behavior is not acceptable. And if this type of behavior is ever demonstrated by anyone, it's actually created and facilitated the reinforcement of a healthy boundary as a network, where we will not stand for this type of behavior. And if there is this type of behavior demonstrated by any guest, that they'll be banned from the station. And it was made very clear to him that he needs to apologize to yourself, Vinny, Andrew Basiago, and me, and the other people that he has defamed and gang stalked, before anyone would at Revolution Radio be interested in following through with him. I'm sure there may be exceptions if somebody wasn't aware, but I think on the most part, I don't think anyone would stand for this type of behavior. And so I want to thank you for combining, network here and making it clear that this behavior is out of control, and it's scary.
It is, and it sort of freaked me out for a while, but then I realised that I have a good network of people behind me. I speak for myself, really only. I have a good reputation, and what was interesting and actually kind of hilarious to me was the absolutely insane rantings of Eugene on my Facebook page, which he refuses to leave, and still continuously posts defaming and libel material on it against me. It occurred to me that because I have blocked him I do not have the ability to even see any of these things that he's posting or saying. And I feel remarkably privileged by that fact that I don't have to actually be exposed to it. I did have large quantities of my loyal listeners, friends, and confidants come into bat and defend me against this person. I also had a number of his cult. I'm going to just basically say that if you're following Eugene and you're an apologist for his kind of behaviour, you're in a cult. Okay? That I cannot make it any more clear cut than that. Once you know how he really is, and I mean really is, and Ava has described, and you keep sticking up for him, you're not in your right mind either, and he has you indoctrinated into his cult.
Well, and especially when somebody such as Eugene is trying to say that he's coming from a spiritual, biblical, Christian place. This is not Christian behavior. You do not go out of your way to hurt people. And it's really far across that line of hurting people to becoming gang stalking. This is typical gang stalking. I know it well because I have faced it for the last 2 years. And it is important that it is called a spade, because that is what this behavior is gang stalking.
That's precisely correct. So, forewarning to everybody, if you ever come into contact with Eugene, he seeks out people that have power and influence in the alternative media. And if you refuse to give him a platform, he will attack you and gang stalk you. So don't refuse to give him a platform. Just don't reply at all. Ignore absolutely everything. The only way that he can not discern that you are denying him a thing, 'cause basically, if, let's say you're George Norrie and you got 29 million listeners, and Eugene Sonny Irvins comes onto you and demands to be on your radio show, and you say no, he then goes, "Oh, George Norrie, you're a shill, you're an Illuminati agent," and so on and so forth. So if you just don't reply, then he doesn't do anything. If you never get involved, if you never say anything to him, or anything of that nature, you can probably save yourself the pain, the fear, and the heartache that all of his victims, myself included, have gone through thus far. If you are a radio show host and he approaches you, just be forewarned. He's done this before. He will do it again. You will be his next victim if you listen to him.
Yes, forewarned is the key.
All right. Well, Ava, is there anything else you'd like to add? Because I think that's a good place to leave it.
No, that's everything. Thank you. I'm glad that you have given me an opportunity to document this in full transparency and truth. And I think for the most part, my intention is to give others a heads up because things seem to escalate quite quickly. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be forewarned, and thank you for listening. This is Vinny Eastwood and Ava Moore, signing off.
Area that I would be willing and, support him in any way I could if he needed a place to crash, or I don't have a lot. I'm kind of depending on exchanging in a fair way with other people as well. So whatever I could offer, I would try to support him. And, maybe that's a little bit naive, but I believe in the good in people, and I wasn't really aware of the level of attack that Eugene kind of goes after people with until I mentioned to him that I had an interview with you. And I would have to excuse myself because I was going to actually dealing with super soldiers. There's like a lot of intense energy in that arena. And I have compassion because a lot of these people come out of projects and they're very wounded. They have a very good reason to be skeptical of people. And so the conversation started at that point where we were just exchanging information, and at one point he made it clear that he was living in a car, and for a while there I was living in a car. So I have compassion for people in this arena. I mean, the people that are in this arena don't necessarily do it for money, and so it can kind of accumulate to taking a toll. So I offered that he, if he was ever in the Seattle
with this guy, can you explain to me and the listeners precisely what happened here?
Okay, well, in the last 2 years, I've been involved with the Super Soldier Summit, and I deal with people who have unusual stories and very peculiar energy and intense energy. So around June, I saw Eugene kind of come out of the gate on Facebook with all this information, and I'll be very honest. He has a very his intellect is definitely driving in the right direction, and I wanted to support him, and I offered to have him on the show. And, I could feel that his paranoia, or, I guess his level of, skepticism of anyone and everyone, was really, really high. So I just let it be. And I think about 6 months later, he finally came back and said, "Oh, by the way, I like some of the things you're posting, and I'd be interested in speaking with you now." And at that point I was like, okay, no big deal. Like, I don't take a lot of things very seriously. I let things go, and I try not to take things personally, but especially
welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special edition of the Vinnie Eastwood Show. One complete with background cackling, and a very special guest named Ava Moore. Ava, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Vinnie. Mm-hmm. How are you?
Yeah, borderlining on fabulous is my standard response. But today, under these circumstances, I may just make an exception. Now, the topic of today is an alleged psychopathic stalker character by the name of Eugene Sonny Irvin, and you've just had a rather nasty experience